Evidencia contundente de drogas a cambio de votos. Eso dice este artículo de ProPublica. Y hoy hemos invitado a la autora Raquel Rutledge para que esté con nosotros. La conversación va a ser en inglés, obviamente, pero vamos a después traducir y poner los captions en español para que todos puedan tener acceso a la cantidad de información, una cantidad simplemente bien preocupante, honestamente, en nuestro sistema electoral. Y sobre todo, lo más lamentable es que uno esperaría que la gobernadora de Puerto Rico hubiera dado entrevistas para entrar, ¿verdad?, en detalles y demás, y eso no ocurrió. Okay. So I was just telling our audience that we're going to do this in Spanish, and I mean in English, and then we're going to put some captions and translate with subtitles. But I just wanted to make sure that the people can understand how deep this goes. How do you start? How this started? Basically, with a scheme of drugs for votes. How did you get that information? And what your sources told you?
Yeah, well, this investigation started because we were looking at what was going on all around the country at the U.S. attorney's offices and how they were declining to prosecute cases and what looked different than previous administrations. When we see a change in administration, we notice that we saw thousands more cases being declined. They're called declinations. And so when we started to drill down and say, like, hey, what kind of cases are not being pursued? This is a case that came to our attention. And so it's something they had been investigating for quite some time with the drugs, the drug smuggling into the prison, and then, more recently, the drugs for votes in 2024.
So basically, it didn't start with something about Puerto Rico. It was more like we're looking into what cases were brought and what cases were not brought, and then you found out this drugs for votes scheme.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So basically, there was a prison gang named Los Tiburones Group 31 that was selling drugs to inmates in exchange for votes. This was in the primary or in the elections? I mean, I read the story, but I just wanted to make sure that people get the amount of info that this went for a longer time than what it was not just the elections. It was more than that.
Yes, Los Tiburones were alleged to have been trading drugs for votes in both the primary and the general election, according to our sources, and using threatening violence, and withholding food and withholding drugs and other sorts of discipline that was being allowed to go on. The discipline being run by the gang itself versus the actual corrections officials. And corrections officials were alleged to have been involved in some cases because they were delivering drugs primarily through drones, and the corrections officials were at times participating in that, and other times looking the other way, and throughout allowing inmates to be beaten and have exchange drugs, etc. For this this coerced vote is what the indictment and what our reporting has found.
Yeah, and basically, it states that federal investigators had solid evidence of this implications of corrections workers and the staff that were working to basically force them to or look at the other way, like as you said, just to make sure that the governor was elected. And this was during also the primary, and the governor said, "How could I have done that? Because I wasn't the governor back then."
I'm not sure exactly what you mean, how she could have done that. I mean, campaigning, politicians, what I'm told from...
I mean, no. Her response was basically saying, like, "Look, I could have not done that because I was not the governor when in the primaries. So how could I force people to vote for me or exchange something with those tiburones?"
I mean, what the prosecutors were alleging is that, they were not they were alleging, what they were investigating and looking into is what her contacts were. Again, one of the things they did find was that one of the gang leaders, had met with her, was talking to her on WhatsApp, and had a screenshot, posted it on social media, and was sort of bragging about the relationship with her. Now, what was discussed in that conversation, we don't know, but that was one of the indications to them that, hey, that she's aware because this gang leader she's talking to, and you saw in her response, I'm sure, that she said, yeah, she meets with families of the inmates, right? That's what she said in her statement. And again, I've been trying to talk with her for weeks and weeks about this, and she has not been willing to engage. What she said is that she, acknowledged that, hey, we meet with the families of inmates, but she didn't address the whole issue of, hey, whether she had met and talked to specifically Los Tiburones, one of the gang leaders of Los Tiburones, who was coercing others for votes, according to the
So,
indictment.
so she didn't deny the WhatsApp postings and the pictures.
I did not see a denial of that in her statement. I mean, she said that any allegations of of her being tied to this are false, and she said any allegations of any interference in an investigation are also false. And I guess my question is, like, how would she know that? How would you know that what was done in the U.S. Attorney's Office or anywhere along the way in terms of investigation into her would have been, would have been above board? How would she even know that? I don't understand that. But those are questions we still have, and we're going to continue to look at, as I said.
I know ProPublica will not disclose any source, but how did this story reach you?
As I said, it's just through our reporting of looking at all around at declinations everywhere, cases that were declined throughout the country. That's basically what I can tell you.
Are those people prosecutors, agents? They're still working with the government?
Yeah, I can't really tell you that either, actually. Without, I want to be very careful to protect people because it's a very important issue, and for people to trust us and be able to come forth and talk about these cases, you just have to be.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I made that question because that's a question that people are
Fair.
going to ask.
Yep.
And I also believe that some people are just not working in government precisely because this kind of this kind of thing. It's
Yeah. Well, we know that
so
the offices have been gutted, and if people have left, they're down significantly in terms of
but
numbers. Yeah.
in the indictment, there was basically statement saying that they were political connections and that the Tiburones were connected politically. And that was part of the indictment. So basically, that's where, we all know that that was written in the indictment. So that was basically edited.
I'm not sure what you mean by edited. So it's in the indictment, but as you'll notice, it's not in any of the charges, right? It's just in the narrative.
Yeah.
It's in the it lays the foundation for what but it's not. There's not a single count or charge that speaks to those allegations in there. But in order to get it in the indictment, you often have to have evidence to present to the grand jury to get it to that stage.
They had to show their ballots to gang leaders so they could know that they were voting the right way.
That's what our reporting suggested. Yeah. And you can tell, like, if you read the report from the Civil Rights Commission, who goes in and does the observations, I mean, they have said that what they saw once they finally got in, they had challenges getting in, accessing the actual vote on voting day for the Department of Corrections. But once they were in, they found very cramped conditions where people did not have privacy, and often due to hand restraints that they had to, hand their ballots over to other people to put their ballots in. They also said they received written complaints from inmates that, described feeling coerced into voting particular ways. So this is something that folks told me. Political analysts that have been looking at this over the years have said this is something that has been rumored for a very long time,
Yeah.
right? And this is the kind of the closest they've gotten with evidence, and they were getting close, to being able to. They did feel like they had nailed down the election trading for votes for drugs. That piece of it had been, solid.
Yeah, we all have heard, about allegations, but there was no proof. And then if there's a picture of this person bragging with Governor González Colón, it will be interesting. Do you have that picture?
I do not have that picture, but I've spoken with sources who have seen that picture.
Yeah, me too. But they didn't share it either, sadly. Okay, so the Governor González Colón said that she actually won the primary, but the inmates voted against her. Do you have more information about that?
That's a good question. I mean, the numbers that we get from the state elections commissions and the numbers that are on their website that you can tally independently don't add up, and so we didn't feel confident that we were able to analyze those. I don't know if you've come up with that same problem in trying to, but it was I just candidly, it was a mess. It was the state elections commissions. The numbers they gave me were an absolute mess. So it was difficult to ascertain. That very well could be true.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is that the Los Tiburones are concentrated in one specific prison, and we don't have the information of that specific prison, so we would not be able to know.
Right, and those votes, the votes are cast from their home address, right? So you're not getting them. It's not the address of the prison, so
Uh,
it's scattered about across the territory of where the inmates were before they became incarcerated. What you said about having one prison, the indictment lists a number of institutions and said they found evidence of this happening in like as many as 5 different institutions with Los Tiburones having a presence in those other institutions as well.
yeah, they do. They are, distributed. I mean, it's like gangs. They're being segregated for gang affiliations. I guess that's not only here. Um, did you ask Stephen Modro about the decision to exclude the election frauds, and what did he say?
Yes, I mean, I sent detailed. What we always do at ProPublica is we send out our findings to everybody in advance we call them no surprises letters. So we don't spring anything on anybody. We let them know very well in advance of what our findings are along the way. We want to get the full picture. We want people's perspectives and input, and we do everything we can to get them. And so he had plenty of opportunity to weigh in. And basically, he just said that, hey, this happened under the Biden administration, for one, and under the previous governor. And said he doesn't talk about open cases. So
Interesting, because he was our district attorney. So Pam Bondi or Blanche were involved in these cases, or they were not. And they have any involvement up to your knowledge?
to my knowledge, I have not seen anything that would indicate that they did. They did not. The offices have responded to me to say they did not. And Pam Bondi didn't answer, my call directly, but, the spokesperson from the DOJ and from the AG's office said that they did not influence the investigation in any way.
Um, I know about the Tulsi Gabbard statement about the seizing of Puerto Rico's voting machines. Is it related?
That is a great question. I think everybody wants to know. I have not spoken to anybody who fully understands what that was about. It's definitely odd, unless they just want, again, like if it is about vulnerabilities in the system, if those particular machines, are being used across the country and they can find vulnerabilities in them. Is that what it's about? I don't know. There's a lot of questions, as you can see, questions about the other investigation that was brought up in that other case where Muldrow's office came out and said, hey, there is no investigation into the governor, but yet a magistrate judge said in a different search warrant there was an investigation underway into her.
Yeah.
So lots of questions remain.
Yeah, I agree. That magistrate was not confirmed for an next appointment, which is, I mean, it was a well-respected Marshall Morgan. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
who's basically one of the most respected judges, magistrates in Puerto Rico, and been in the federal court for many years.
So what do you make of
Okay,
that? What do you make of that?
it's just something happened. We will never know, because there was a committee that was investigating, and basically they did recommend his confirmation as a magistrate again, and then he wasn't, which is something happened. I don't know what happened. No one knows. I do have a question about your perspective of inmates voting in Puerto Rico, which is something odd that doesn't happen in the States. Actually, after their sentences expire, they don't have the right to vote in many states.
Yeah, that's right. It is interesting to consider the history of how it became. But there are a couple of states in the United States that do allow that, Maine and Vermont. And recently, the District of Columbia in 2020 allowed inmates to begin voting. So, there's arguments to be made on all sides of things about the constitutional right to vote not being taken. You see things like this when that is a captive population that doesn't, that, is very vulnerable. Speaking of vulnerabilities, that's a vulnerable population, right? So I think there are obviously some challenges to it. It seems.
Yeah, I agree, and it's definitely there. I mean, people that are not receiving medications, which actually happens here a lot, they look for any kind of relief. And they're addicts, most of them. So they have this addiction. They're patients to be treated, and they don't receive any treatment. Um, Something that is really interesting for me is that you documented that Gonzalez Colon signed laws favoring inmates in her first months, and basically professional licenses for people with criminal records, private sector employment. Did your investigation find whether these laws were part of prior agreement?
No, I mean, that was a question, of course, that I presented to her, just asking, hey, was this something that, you did promise? And I haven't gotten any response from that. So I don't have any way to know.
I mean, this story basically suggests, without stating, that there was someone that stopped this investigation because it was getting too close to Gonzalez Colon and maybe even Trump. Is it something that happened from the White House? I mean, or we just don't know who was behind. I mean, we do know that there was administration, but how high was that person in the administration that decided not to pursue that line of questioning?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question. We do know that it stopped with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with Stephen Muldrow's office is where it stopped. But whether it went higher than that, whether there's any reason, for whether he was directed by anybody else, again, they are denying it at the higher levels. Um, that's what we know at this juncture.
Yeah, and we also know that our resident commissioner, who is our congressman, asked Congress to investigate this. Had you have that conversation with him?
Yes, I talked with him, and he said he is, actively pursuing that, and looking for perhaps an oversight letter. Seeking an oversight letter. Whether that will materialize or not, I think is unclear at this point. But clearly there is a feeling that it's important for all parties to have secure elections. I think everybody's on the same page about wanting to ensure that elections are safe and free.
And actually, your findings is that it was not. I mean, at least free wasn't,
Right, right.
and it was not safe either because they were even kicking people and depriving of food and all that. So,
It's interesting
uh,
to me that you have groups like Group 31, Los Tiburones, incorporating or becoming groups for those reasons that you said. There, long-standing history of problems with proper care in the prisons, and so what seemingly started out as an advocacy group for inmates' rights, what federal prosecutors say has evolved over time into these violent criminal operations, and including 4 overdose deaths. Right, like there's some serious things going on in the prison, and um,
we don't get it. I know she's gonna say this was a hit piece, but I believe that of course it wasn't. I can I read it, and it was well documented, and I mean I commend you and congratulate you, of course. I wish would I had that kind of relationship with people that have that kind of knowledge. Um, at the same time, I don't get why the governor didn't answer your questions. I mean, I mean, if I'm sure that this is a lie and this is something that didn't happen, I would just tell you to your face. I mean, straight up, hey, I didn't have any involvement. If I get to know someone that actually did this myself, I will refer that person to be prosecuted at the state level. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was my initial thought as well. But you can't make those assumptions. People don't want to talk to the media for all kinds of reasons these days, and so yeah. I mean, I always wish and I want people to have every opportunity in the world to give your perspective and to weigh in. And but at the same time, I think there's just distrust, as you know, or there's distrust among the press, and distrust among about media, and so that may have been the case. I can't tell you why, but it doesn't seem to. It seems like it would be helpful for the world to an elected official, a governor, to to engage and speak about this, because it is an important problem. People are getting killed in prison, and and being beaten over votes, and it's so that was my my question to her, is how concerned are you about the safety of of prisoners in this situation? So yeah.
Mhm. What's missing from this story? What's the next story? You have another story about
Uh,
this?
I'm continuing to get responses from people that might have some more information. So we're gonna keep digging and seeing where it leads next. I can't tell you at the moment, but yeah, we don't usually just abandon
Yeah,
our investigations quickly.
yeah.
So yeah.
I know that's what you do for a living. I've spoken to a couple of sources about this story after I read it, and one of my sources said that actually there's people that are and were working in the campaign with for Governor Gonzalez Colon, um, and that they were recorded. I mean, they are tapes about this kind of thing, and they don't have direct knowledge of the involvement of the governor, but people close to the governor, they do know that they were involved. And actually, what they were saying is like, Jay, look, this is pretty normal here. This is nothing new. I was like, okay, okay, so this is worse than
Mhm.
what I expected. So
Yeah.
I mean, their
Yeah.
reaction was like, no, but yeah, where's the beef? I mean, this happens. Every,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Well, I think
okay,
right. It's easy to get desensitized to this sort of stuff. Yeah, it happens, but that doesn't make it right. And that doesn't mean it should. It doesn't mean, like that it should be, people that do this, there's got to be some accountability along the way. This impunity, is allows us to go on. And that's the thing about like having the evidence against the corrections officials, right? Because that's the first step, is like that's where it could presumably be put to an end. But um yeah, there's information out there like you're hearing. I'm hearing similar stuff, working to nail some of that down.
yeah, me too. I mean, when I read and when I spoke with these people, they were like, yeah, I mean, in the indictment there were people visiting and prisons that were not supposed to visit, or privileges with a PlayStation and plasma TVs and all that. I was like, okay, so if they are able to do that without anyone's knowledge, probably there are people going out of prison as well, and maybe visiting people. So I would rather not keep this conversation going because I love myself. And now, I mean, it's jokingly, but at the same time, I mean, it's the perfect um, alibi. I was in prison. So I could not do. I could have not been in some other place because I was in prison. So you commit a crime, but you were in prison. So, but people are not in prison because they're actually visiting or doing this kind of, uh, have this kind of privilege, but they were in prison. I mean, so I mean, that's the perfect alibi. It's you. I mean, it's just for me the kind of thing that could be behind this story is so big, is so huge that I don't get how is not something that the governor will be wanting to answer.
Yes, yes, I agree with you on that front. And I mean that, yeah, there's definitely a lot of cooperation from associates outside the prison, right? That's very clear that there's people working on the outside as well. So, yeah, I mean, and most of the money was exchanged on the outside, right? So there's a lot of help outside. But yeah, I mean, I think it is very concerning.
It is very
Uh,
concerning for me, and it should be for anyone that lives here. I appreciate your time. Sorry for my broken English. I try to do my best. I actually started writing some of the questions, so this could be more smooth. So
well,
I usually don't do
I'm
that, but
sorry for my lack of Spanish. I have spent my life trying to learn Spanish. I have studied it since I was in 8th grade, and for some reason I just can't get it. I need to come live somewhere and immerse myself in it so that I can
Yep.
improve. It's not for lack of trying. I do care and I do want to, but it's something I just don't have. That's not one of my gifts. I don't know.
Well, you're more than welcome to come here, but if you do, just tell us in advance so we can hire some security. I'm kidding.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. Well, let's stay in touch. All right. Thank you for having me.
Gracias, Raquel. Gracias.
Bye.
Gracias por tu tiempo.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Bye.